When multinational companies decide to outsource certain processes like handling customer inquiries and complaints or finding buyers of their new products, they always scout for the best partners to do these tasks on their behalf, while lowering their overhead costs and allowing them more time to focus on their core operations. Increasingly, a variety of corporate firms and institutions in different industries such as telecommunications, information technology, banking and finance, power and energy, travel and trade, health and medical professions, legal help desks, advertising as well as multimedia firms are realizing the benefits of outsourcing. Here in the Philippines, they are more than happy to find such a large and ready pool of individuals excited to interact with customers. Filipinos are natural communicators. We speak confidently and easy to understand English. We are easy to train as well in other languages like Mandarin, Spanish, French, you name it. We are highly educated and we aim to please. It comes naturally to us. As such, we welcome training opportunities to hone our skills and keep us competitive, even if it means working at odd hours to service customers across the globe. From the US and Canada in North America, to the United Kingdom in Europe, from Australia down under, to the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, our call center agents in the Philippines are constantly in contact with clients and customers all over the world. The BPO sector has faced many challenges over the years. Good thing the collective effort of major players within the industry, represented by the Contact Center Association of the Philippines, has made giant strides. Undeniably, CCAP has become the industry's strongest voice, a source of business trends and direction for all. Since its establishment in October of 2001, CCAP has pooled over 100 allied firms representing 87% of the industry. As the industry association, its linkages with government, the academe, and support businesses has allowed it to aggressively pursue global marketing efforts to position the Philippines as the best destination in offshore business partnerships. Its call center conferences and expositions have attracted thousands of potential talents across the archipelago, effectively spreading the good news about the industry. In 2008, it joined in the formation of the Asia-Pacific Contact Center Association of Leaders, as it managed to grow the industry despite the global crisis. To date, CCAP continues to work to sustain and elevate the quality and supply of available Filipino talent, making big strides in improving employee welfare and retention, and devising new talent development programs, while promoting positive reforms in labor laws. CCAP is and will continue to be the industry's resounding voice in years to come.
We Filipinos sometimes pronounce the E sound with a short I.
Please.
Alright, smile and show your teeth, then say please.
please.
There you go. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening in the East Coast and very early good morning in the Philippines. Welcome to the fifth installment of the Global Business Processes powered by the Philippine Webinar Series. This event is being organized by the various Philippine trade and investment centers in the United States, together with the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C., and the Philippine Consulates General across the United States. My name is Rhea Oreta, and I will be your moderator for today. So the Global Business Processes webinar series began on August 13, and it will run until the 1st of October. So after this webinar, we still have 3 more webinars that we'll talk about on the BPOs in the healthcare industry, in the software and apps development, and in backroom processes. So we hope you can still join us. But for today, we are going to talk about how to establish your call center overseas and how to ensure 24/7 support to serve your clients' needs. We are going to have 2 speakers for today. The first one is going to be Mr. Butch Valenzuela from the Contact Center Association of the Philippines and Ms. Sarah Machan-De Silva of Alorica. And they will talk about the various aspects and nuances of call center operations and the advantages of the Philippines being the #1 in the industry, as well as some of the success stories. So we are going to have a question and answer portion after their presentations. So please send your questions and we will try our best to answer them. In sending your questions, please identify yourself and your affiliation and to whom you would like to direct your questions. And so on to our first presentation. Our first speaker is Mr. Butch E. Valenzuela. He is a member of the Board of Directors of the Contact Center Association of the Philippines. In 2007, Mr. Valenzuela, together with his son Julian, founded the Visaya Knowledge Process Outsourcing Corporation, or Visaya KPO. This is one of the first knowledge-based organizations in the Philippines. And in 2001, he was elected to the Board of Directors of the Contact Center Association of the Philippines, the official organization of contact centers in the country. And this is formerly the Call Center Association of the Philippines. And then in 2013, he was nominated Treasurer of the Association, and he is now on his 5th term, having served the board for 9 years. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Butch Valenzuela.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everything with everyone today is fine. I'm going to try to share my screen. All right. I'm just going to stop my video for now. Can you see my screen, Rhea? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Good morning, everyone. Today I'll
Uh,
be talking about a little bit about the industry, uh, the basically the IT BPM industry of the Philippines, and talk a little bit about the Contact Center Association, as well as give you some insights as to what the experience has been since the pandemic actually struck in March. Okay, so the IT BPM industry basically started in the Philippines roughly around 20 years ago. Um, you know, the advent of technology like voice over IP has actually catapulted this industry from an offshore perspective to where it is today, that is around $25 billion in revenue, with about about 1.4 million people employed. The Contact Center Association basically has really um, experienced about double-digit growth in the last few years. However, in the last 2 years, we've actually gone down to roughly around the 3.3 to 7.4 projected growth in revenue, as well as 2.8 to 6.7 headcount projected growth from 2019 to 2022. The Philippine contact center industry is a segment of the larger IT BPM segment. So we are a subsector of it that is around $15 billion in revenue, and we are about 64% of the IT BPM industry, with around 900,000 people employed. So what is CCAP, or the Contact Center Association? Basically, our goal is really to strengthen the market position of the Philippines and retain it. We've actually overtaken India in an offshore position in voice since 2010, and we'd like to actually maintain that position over time. CCAP actually promotes the contact center industry, and the reason why it's called contact center is it's no longer just voice, but rather it actually all interactions between the different clients that we would have, all interactions, whether it is email, chat, SMS, or even social media. These are the member companies. Today, we are about 126 from the 12 that actually started in 2001. What are the benefits of outsourcing? Basically, outsourcing really allows companies to concentrate on their core business. By outsourcing, you're able to handle better the peaks and troughs of your business. You could actually spread the workload between your people in-house and your outsourced partner. You could also reduce in-house overhead, as well as, if you actually contract with contact center partners, you have access to the latest technology that is available, because that would be the core business of the companies that actually do this professionally. And much less, basically, is really reducing costs, allowing companies to really truly measure their quality, as well as increase efficiency by outsourcing. Where does the Philippines lie today in terms of country positioning in the global market? the Philippines actually can provide services, all services to, across industries. And we have very good service diversification compared to other players, other countries that actually do offshoring work. The talent pool here in the Philippines is really, there's a lot of educated people. If you go to the United States, if you go to any hospitals, for example, a lot of nurses are actually employed in hospitals in the States. And we also use that same talent here for healthcare work. We have a lot of CPAs, a lot of really educated people. The Philippines also has a close affinity to the Western countries, especially the United States. The Philippines was actually colonized by the United States for about 40 years, and everything here in the Philippines is very Western in nature. Vertical specialization, we are actually very sector diversified in our coverage, which really means that when you look at the specialization of industries here in the Philippines, a lot of it has actually, it's more diversified in nature rather than specific to just a few verticals. And obviously, we are also not the lowest cost leader. However, we could actually save companies between 30 to about 70% of what it would cost in the United States. How do you actually outsource? There are three ways. Basically, you have the large companies like JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo that wholly owned subsidiaries here in the Philippines, and they are what you call captives. There's also, you could also do a joint venture with a third-party vendor to run your process, or you could fully outsource, which is really contracting with a third-party vendor. What are some of the processes that we would do here? And these are just some of them. There's inbound voice services, there's outbound voice services, there's horizontal back office services, which is really function specific. So that's where email or social media, the more, I guess, specific type of services that are not necessarily industry specific. Then you have vertical back office services that are more specific to an industry. For example, claims processing for insurance, or mortgage origination for the banking sector, or even medical coding and billing for healthcare. And AI and robotics has also been another outsourced process that large call centers here in the Philippines already are doing as well. How do we ensure quality and privacy and security of people's information, and making sure that that information is actually secure? You really have to look at it not only from a technology perspective, but really from a people perspective, from a process perspective, as well as a technology perspective. So, with people, that's where it really starts, right? You make sure that they're trained properly, make sure that they have organizational development over time. With process, call centers really have, or contact centers really have a lot of processes to ensure the quality of the work, as well as the telephony, the technology aspect of it, is really geared towards being able to do the work properly. So since COVID, the Philippines has actually been very resilient in making sure that people or the contact center industry continues to work. About 50% of our capacity today is work from home. There's been a lot of, what we had shown is that there's been a lot of resiliency and agility, and being flexible enough to be able to adapt to the new normal that we have today. If you can imagine, we had to move thousands of people from the office scenario to a work from home scenario in just less than a week. The government here in the Philippines had actually mandated that we provide either hotels or lodging for our people that can't travel because there was no public transportation to be had. So in hiring, we've polled our member companies, and about 80%, 86% of our member companies said that they continued to hire after the lockdown in March. And those 86% will continue to be hiring until the end of the year, for the remainder of 2020. About 50% of our people have actually, of the companies that we've asked, basically had retrenched some folks. However, as the months went on, the hiring actually continued. And when you go look at the business sentiment after the lockdown, has about 34% of the business has actually been much higher than it was from the start of the lockdown. Government has also given us a lot of support from an investment perspective, and as well as making sure that our people are also safe. And during the pandemic, even there's one company that even needed to hire about 4,000 people in September. If you look at the resilience of our community, basically about 80%, 87% of our people in July and August are working. The percentage of employees working from home basically has increased over time from March when we had the lockdown to August. That number now is at a high of around 82% for captives, about 50% for the outsourcing industry. What have we done? I mean, basically today we do a lot of touchless end-to-end recruitment, 100% remote onboarding and training of our people. We do remote transitions, from basically a workplace to work anywhere perspective. We've actually maintained and sustained the performance of our people, as evidenced really by improved productivity from a work from home perspective. So this industry over time has actually reacted and has really, transitioned itself into this new normal. And we never thought that we could do it, but today it's been quite a fantastic revelation for the industry. And of course, people first, right? Unproductive people continued to receive salaries, even though, since the lockdown started. But that graph is actually starting to lower down over time. Work from home employees received extra pay, and as they continue to remain in a work from home perspective, that people are actually getting extra pay as they work from home for as an incentive for working from home. We've actually provided a lot of our employees with employee shuttles so that we could move people around from their homes to the workplace, as well as because we've kept a skeletal force basically, and there are some processes, especially in the financial sectors, that could not be moved to a work from home scenario. So people are actually being shuttled to and fro from their homes. We've also put people into hotels so that basically they would be closer to the office. We've practiced social distancing, and even our managers or even executives have been delivering computers to people's homes. So what are the key takeaways? Basically, the BPO industry has really demonstrated strong resiliency and the ability to manage their business responsibly so that we could move forward. Historically, the industry has shown resilience. If you go back, look at the 2008-2009 financial crisis, the BPO industry is actually increased in, and actually had given strong performance throughout the crisis. And, today we've also really shown that we could do the same thing as this pandemic continues. The one thing is really to understand and pivot to where the high growth opportunities are at. That's really a very good, a key for companies in today's world is we really need to look for where those high growth opportunities might be. And clients today are also seeking bold transformation initiatives. I mean, with these processes being moved to a work anywhere perspective, there's security and privacy issues that could be at risk. So clients are really looking how to make sure that they actually continue to where they were. And automation is really a big part of it, and employing. So lastly, I guess one of the biggest takeaways here is that the contact center BPO industry in the Philippines is a key contributors, and we really need to make sure that ways to really improve the practices that we have in this new normal, making sure that our responsibilities to our clients are actually met, as well as the government support, is really key to ensuring that we are able to continue as an industry moving forward. So I'll transition now basically as a case study. I guess one of the things that we do as a company is we handle, I guess they are the largest drone company in the world. We do voice, email, chat, social media, back office, and other administrative processes for them. We provide them pre-sales and after-sales support services. A lot of what we do is really, technical support work, to make sure that people know how to assemble the drone, or even help them with, flying instructions. We also handle a lot of returns for this client, and they have very stringent service level, SLAs basically, and metrics. That it has been a challenge for us, but we've actually had this client for roughly about 5 years now. And we today manage about 97,000 tickets per month. So why Visaya? Basically, we are not the lowest cost, but we can provide high value offerings. We are compliant to all local and international security and data privacy. We do a lot of healthcare work as well, which means that we are HIPAA as well as PCI DSS compliant. Basically our key here is we normally tell our clients that we are an extension of their business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butch. The call center is one of the most popular jobs of our generation. And to this day, it continues to be the biggest source of employment in the Philippines. And it's quite remarkable how our call centers remained above 80% operational during this pandemic. And it just shows us the history of resilience and how it remains to be our sunshine industry despite the dark times of COVID-19. So thank you, Sir Butch. Our next speaker is Ms. Sarah Machan-De Silva. Sarah is the Chief of Staff for Asia of Alorica. Alorica is one of the largest call center providers in North America, and it has presence in 14 countries across the globe. Sarah has been leading Alorica's Asia operations for 16 years now, and currently manages a nearly 40,000 strong workforce. She oversees company operations in the Philippines and also supports operations in Japan, China, and India. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ms. Sarah Machan-De Silva.
Thanks, Rhea.
You're welcome.
So hello, everybody. Again, I'm Sarah Machan-De Silva, and I hope everyone's having a great day, great evening, wherever you are right now. So I'm really glad to be here and be part of today's session, and I'm really excited to go through setting up call centers and be available for any queries that the audience may have about this particular topic. So let's get into the next slide, and I'll get right into it. All right. So first of all, what I wanted to show here was the whole employee life cycle. Right? So if you look at it from a high level, and you'll be able to see the different touch points there are that you should be looking at and asking questions about. So first, in the marketing and the sourcing piece, and this is how we're going to be able to attract the talent and the profile needed for your type of work. And we fully understand how near and dear your business is to your heart. But also, to help with any hesitations, I should mention that 85% of the work that our industry does right now is mid to complex work types. So Butch went through a couple of things that we currently do within the industry. And hiring, it's actually when we get to finalize and get the folks onboarded into the call centers. and discuss their whole package. And what's important here is that we actually get to start setting expectations as early as this stage. So there may have been bits and pieces during interview stage, but now that they're at the signing stage, we allow them the opportunity to know everything they should know about whether it's shift schedules, work type, samples to listen to or look at. And if you're open to doing a tour of the area they'll work in, that goes a really, really long way when it comes to branding and employee loyalty and pride. So, you'd be really surprised with just setting expectations from day zero and how that actually helps retention for the first 15 days. Right. The next part of this is training and onboarding. So there's two facets for training and onboarding. Some organizations do cultural training and runs about a week, sometimes a little less, where we get to customize the needed cultural information that introduces them to how to cater to your customers and to your product, depending on where your market is and how we can prepare for accents and fluency in conversation to really assist with the flow. Another part of the training is, of course, your product specific training. So depending on how long your training is, there's a transition of knowledge from your organization to your partner. And if you don't have any in place right now, think of, certification for trainers and training the trainer and how to pass on that knowledge to your partner the best way possible. So, several ways to look at this. You could do this virtual, given the situation that we're in right now, where your training experts can validate the material being taught and monitoring the facilitator for feedback. Or if you do that on site when time finally permits, as a best practice, is invest in your partner traveling to your office to immerse in your culture and branding and vision while you get into the product. So to ensure that you have the best outcomes for your product training, have toll gates in place like assessments and touch points. The next piece that I had here was nesting. So this is really to get the folks' feet wet. And this is a critical point where you actually have your newly trained people actually come out of a very nurtured environment in training. And it's best that you actually start with lower ratios to support the new hires, do pre and post briefings, before they do the work to capture challenges and actually provide reminders. So you don't have them do the work full shift. Typically, you lessen that by like 20-50% for the nesting period, because the last thing that you want to do is shock folks coming from a very nurtured environment and then going into production, and you cause the risk of losing them. And then operations, obviously full on production, full-time work, where you can keep them at the quality of work and watch out for the efficiencies and actually adjust as needed. And then this goes along with the operational cadence where, once your partners get into it, you start meeting your requirements, you guys start working together to improve, retain, and look at ways to actually innovate. Okay, and then getting into the next part of the presentation, which is the next slide. Where do you start? So, choose the areas you're going to feel comfortable with, right? Keep your options open. Look at several locations. Next is ensuring that you have all your operational assumptions ready. I've listed the typical needs for, the staff, to get into a really healthy discussion when it comes to your potential partners. The more details you have, the more transparency up front, the more precise your partners can get in providing pricing to you. So, really the next steps here is sending out, proposals out to see where you can actually get your work outsourced. Look at what's happening in the landscape. And there's a lot of articles out there, on the web that provide so much insight that's going to help you determine if you're looking at the right areas. Also talk to industry associations like CCAP, right? And experts like Butch. There's a wealth of knowledge that you gain here for you to actually make the best decision. And if you're still hesitant, consider a pilot, right? Ease into it and work with your partner to see if they're willing to do a proof of concept, like with pilot groups, a little smaller than, what you want to outsource at the end. But honestly, the capability, if you look at it and you try to see what, the outcome of the work during those pilots, they'll most likely exceed your expectations. All right, and then into the next slide. is, how call centers operate. So, there's ways that call centers can help, right? Butch went through this earlier, so I won't take too long, but there's a true outsourcing model, which is pretty much everything that we just talked about. The other is build, operate, transfer model, which is in essence, your partner helps bring up your call center, get it fully functional, transfer it over to you with all the legalities and after a set amount of time. So, that makes it more of a captive for you. And, you just have to add to planning and managing all of that once it's transferred over to you. So what you should look for are leaders that understand your business from A to Z, right? Luckily, you have a very mature leadership in the Philippines. So, take the time to really choose the folks that you feel really comfortable with and you feel best about, knowing that they have the best interest of yours in mind and, they're willing to work towards your vision. So, lastly, given, where we are right now, business continuity. And I know Butch went through that in length earlier. So, if there's anything that we've learned in the past few months, it's executing on our business continuity plans through our work at home solutions. But we all know that there are other things that we'll run into. So apart from that, it's knowing, the diversity of locations that are available to you with your potential partners and their infrastructure setup that's actually going to help ensure that you have a business continuity plan in place. Okay. Sorry, so into the next slide is really just, the different fee structures that are available. So there's a lot of billing methodologies. So it's anywhere from billing by the hour worked or by the payroll hour, which are easily explainable, or, there's, billing the full-time employee based on your needs. So there's a billing transaction there's a billing for per transaction, and then there's also billing by the minute. And you can request for different options based on what works best for you, depending on the type of work you have. And again, this is where all your operational assumptions work into your partners getting the most precise price for you. And you'll find that the definitions online, along with the pros and cons, and those are different things that you should expect during a pricing discussion with potential partners. All right, and then I'll get into the last slide, which is basically, the different ways to engage once you guys start getting into the partnership. So, how are you measuring the successes of your partnership and how should you engage, right? Define what makes it a success. We're all about numbers, right? How far we have exceeded your expectations, how we're partnering and sharing best practices, and this goes both ways. And listen to the needs of what needs to be localized. The transfer it isn't going to be apples to apples. There's a lot of there's not a lot of nuances and a lot of suggestions that are going to come from your partners to show you how you can best create, let's say, even training modules so that you get the best talent and outcomes. And then the last part of this slide is really investing in how to engage, right? Don't just think that when you outsource, everything's going to be smooth sailing. You make sure you get to do your check-ins, discuss progress against your measurements of success and actions to improve. So, whether it's virtual or planning on-site visits, these all go a really, really long way. So, focus group discussions are another one where, can be done face-to-face or virtual, but this is where you get to see what's happening on the ground, hear what's happening on the ground. You gain a lot of ideas on things that can be changed to better serve your customers and even the end users. And ultimately, it's a gain for both, even on efficiencies and customer satisfaction. And of course, rewards and recognition. Not everything has to be monetary, but engaging in ways to recognize your team members for the hard work that they've done and continuing to encourage them also goes a long way. So again, doesn't always have to be monetary. So that said, it kind of sums up, the high level overview of setting up call centers. And I'm hoping that you were able to gain something from this, and I'm looking forward to interacting with you in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. In your video, I just love how Alorica tapped into this culture of connection as part of your branding in the Philippines. I think this goes to the heart of every Filipino because we Filipinos, we just love to connect and we thrive in the modern forms of, communication, even be it social media or chatting or even just the simple act of calling on the telephone. And maybe that's why your chatbot recruitment is working actually in the Philippines, right?
Yes, yes. That's one of the largest reasons why we can actually hire 6,000 in a month. So
Wow. Wow. And I think that's related to our first question for today. We are now in our Q&A portion. We have a question here asking if you, I guess this goes to both of you, if you have a minimum FTE requirement to work with a company, full-time equivalent.
I can.
Yeah.
There are really two sides to this coin as well.
Mhm.
When you really think about it, there are in this industry there are the large players, the medium-sized players, and the small players. And a lot of it also has to do with economics. Smaller players actually will take on any type of client simply because they're starting their business or they're really wanting to grow their business over time. The large players, however, also have minimum, you know, because they have large centers that they'd have to fill up, I guess. And I'll have Sarah answer that particular question. But I'll look at it from my perspective because basically we are a medium-sized center. We typically have a 10 count or 10 FTE minimum for our processes. However, if there are companies that would like to actually, bring in smaller headcount, if the price is right, by all means.
Sarah?
So I'll tack on to that. And I guess, for me, regardless of the size of the organization, but I feel like there really isn't a minimum. I feel like if it's a partnership that both organizations are willing to delve into, there should be no hesitation there. There's sometimes hesitation when it's a large organization partnering, when they're outsourcing to a large organization, is that you have to look at seeing whether that organization is nimble and can act fast. Because I think that's part of the bigger hesitation there. But that's the kind of conversations that you have to have up front where I only have two folks that I need to outsource. How does that work out for you? And at Alorica we actually have programs that that are in that type of size. So it's really just about how we want to partner and if it's something that we really want to move forward with.
Okay. We have a question from Mr. Gus Mercado of Texas. He's one of our Filipino community leaders in Texas. And I think this is quite relevant today. Did you pick up business from India when it locked down? And how is our labor cost now compared to India? Sarah, you might want to go first.
So I don't think necessarily much from India, in my experience, because I also help oversee our India operations, is that we're actually growing there. The skill sets are very different again, right? If it was more voice, there's probably more pickup there. But it's largely back office for what we have there. But we didn't pick up as much there than we would actually have already picked up from other regions like North America, Europe, or Latin America. So we've picked up more business from there than we actually would have from our India operations. So in terms of labor cost, it's something we still can't beat right now, right? They're significantly lower than us. But again, the skill sets are also very different. So that's why you have to be very smart about what you outsource where in the world.
Butch, you have something to add?
I guess Sarah has actually said it all, which is really, it really depends upon the process that you want to outsource, and really price There was a study actually where people that outsource purely from a price perspective, about 85% of them actually fail. Because the reality is that you really need to understand why you are outsourcing as a business, why you'd like to bring that business to even an offshore or even a north shore, a near shore location. It's really you have to understand why you are going to outsource, and you also have to really have people dedicated to manage that outsource process. If I was a business that I want to outsource my process to whether it's onshore, offshore, nearshore, wherever it may be, it's just understanding what do I really want to do, right? In order to make sure that that process is done correctly. And I think that's really more important than the labor arbitrage component.
Yeah.
Sarah, any more?
No, I think Butch covered it. If it's more than the labor arbitrage, it's really value. It's right. The value and the work that you actually get that's that you're looking forward to more than anything.
Right. He has a follow-up question. With the travel ban, how do you accommodate potential customers who want to visit and do an in-person look-see before signing contracts? What challenges, that's one question. The next one is, what challenges do you face with working from home voice operators with bad internet connections and no VPN lines from homes? Connectivity. Mr. Butch? You want to go first? Mr. Butch?
Just in case Butch froze,
Sarah,
I'll take that on first.
Thank you.
So yeah, no, not a problem. So in the process where there is a travel ban, our stance as an organization is we haven't forced it, right? If feel like they're allowed to, but we have restrictions of who comes in, who goes out. We've actually gotten a lot more creative with the virtual tours of the specific centers that they're looking to. So you have to look at different ways to do that. And again, it's agility and it's the flexibility of your organizations and how you really want to be able to market your particular center. Other ways to get them really comfortable is actually getting to speak to folks that are located within that center so that they get like a sense of the culture, right? They can do that via video conference, but all of our presentations so far have been via video, getting them comfortable with what the area looks like, doing the virtual tours at the same time, sending them all the information that's typically needed for them to make a decision. And if it's really about them coming over to the site, ours is we really put the safety first. So if that goes away eventually, they're more than welcome if they want to hold back on the decision for that before the time comes that they're actually allowed to travel.
Right. Virtual tours are actually easier.
Yeah, a lot easier, a lot safer too, right?
Right, especially nowadays. Mr. Butch, are you ready? Or do we move on? Yes? He may be having bad connect. Okay.
I'll probably just add on really quick on the VPN piece.
Okay, sure.
For organizations is to really look at investing. A lot of the centers out here have actually invested in a VPN solution, right?
Okay.
So there's several VPN solutions that are set up for our employees so that they're able to log in and do the work securely. And in terms of the internet connectivity, and how that that works out. We've had our puts and takes there, really depending on the area, and sometimes we'll be working with those that have their personal internet and try to see what we could do about their particular bandwidth. But at the same time, is looking at how organizations actually invest in the connectivity of themselves, where we're working with our internet service providers to hook up our agents to be able to fully function as work at home and get the most productivity out of that.
Right.
Yep.
I guess Ray can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I guess here's a really good example of how internet connectivity in the Philippines. And I'll just cut my video off for a bit, but there are a lot of challenges from an internet perspective. Just to give you an example, basically, I have 100 Mbps here at home. But it chokes from time to time. I will not name the carrier, but I'm about to actually move to a different carrier, because they have actually been, there's been a lot of issues with this particular carrier in the recent past. I believe it also it has something to do with, I guess where they're at in making sure that there are enough, cell sites or enough connectivity. But if as far as I guess a VPN connection, our agents, we actually provide them with VPN connections to our office so that they can have access to our dialers in the office to go out. And basically we deploy MPLSs, which are not the same as connectivity here in a home environment.
Okay, so all right. Our next question, hold on. There's one question from Honolulu. When to operate as a captive or to outsource?
I guess I can answer that, Sarah. And first, I guess really if you are a large player or large companies typically would rather create their own subsidiaries to move through. Smaller players, smaller companies, obviously from a cost perspective, sometimes it doesn't make sense to spend all the capital investment to make in order to start an office overseas, as well as it really doesn't. I mean, this industry is not an easy one to be in.
Right.
There are a lot of things. First of all, it's very capital intensive. Secondly, would a small business necessarily really want to divert from their core in order to be able to, do the relatively, tasks that are not really part of their core business. So, I'd say in that sense, it's, a lot better to outsource rather than, fly 7,000 miles away and actually start another business doing call center work.
Is there cost differential, like speaking of locations, like if you choose Manila over Cebu? Sarah?
Yeah, there are, right? Not specific to Cebu though, right? So like Cebu is very tier 1, and it's just like Metro Manila. So I would probably compare it more to other locations like where we have more presence in the Visayas outside of Cebu, like Iloilo, Bacolod, even more down south where we've got Davao, and even up north, right? We've got a lot of centers there. But, what I would compare it to more when it comes to cost differential would be more cities like that versus Cebu is almost like, almost like Manila when it comes to cost.
Sir Butch, you have something to add?
I think that kind of sums it up.
Uh-huh.
Basically, Cebu and Manila are really tier one cities.
Yeah.
There are a lot of next wave cities out there that can provide price differentials. One has to think really, it's not only the price of labor, which really affects it, but labor is still the largest component of, your cost of sales, basically. But there's also technology as well as, utilities are also more expensive in the province than it is in Metro Manila. So there are, there are different factors that actually affect the pricing.
Right, right. Aside from aside from the location and the connectivity issue, we have one question here about data. How do you manage data protection for your personnel who are working from home?
That is a very good question. I guess the right answer to it, and it's not necessarily the answer that we have with our folks that are working from home today. A good way to really, from a systems perspective, is really to provide VDI technology, which is really virtual desktops, so that they're not working on PCs. Everything is controlled through the server in the office, and people are just not able to go anywhere. But here's really what the reality is of that, which is, when you talk about whether it's working from home or working from the office, in our office setting, we do not allow paper. We do not allow, recording material, cameras, whatever, into our production floor to ensure that there is no way for people to actually bring or take things, from it. The reality is, though, is that, if you are at home and you're working on a, I guess with financial data, I guess financial institutions really don't allow people to bring that data to a work from home scenario simply because of privacy issues and security of that information. So, and I'm sure Sarah could actually explain it more than I would. But as far as, the company that, I work with, basically, we try to make sure that, it really has to do with the people that you have. Bottom line.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And, there are a lot of ways to supplement it, right? You have agreements and reminders of compliance, whether, it's HIPAA, PCI, the type of setup that we had in office is something that they should expect as something where, we hold them to utmost integrity, even at home, right? So there are a lot of different things that can help supplement that and the reminders of what your, employee experience or your human resource policies are when it comes to data privacy and protection of that. So, there's, while, it comes down to the weakest link, which is, our folks, that's what we continue to remind them. So that's why you always have to engage. And this whole environment of work at home is very different and something new to most organizations. is that you have to continue to work on trying to see how you can continue to engage and remind them of what the repercussions are when when you're at breach or something happens. So I think that's what's most important, and Butch hit the nail on the head with that.
Right, right. We might not be able to answer all the questions. We have a lot, but I'll try to read one last question from our trade commission, from our special trade representative in New York, Mr. Nick Bautista. How is your company preparing for the increasing role of AI, VR, robotics in business process management?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, Butch.
I guess my answer to that is very simple. Embrace it. It will come. Okay.
Inevitably, yeah.
It's it's something that is it will happen. So the key there is really to use the technology to your advantage. At the end of the day, people still want to talk to people, right? And so you use robotics, and for tasks that are actually more mundane and more repetitive in nature. From a call center, from the contact center perspective, though, we'd like to transition our folks to a more higher value add type work, right? In order for us to really be a good provide good value to our clients, it's really transitioning ourselves to the more higher value add work.
Yeah.
Sarah?
I'd absolutely agree. Embrace it, go with it. It's create it. Our India operations was actually set up as a business transformation hub. And we work with them specific to RPA, RDA, AI, and that comes from us. It's specific to the things that we can be a lot more efficient on, things that we can automate easily, so that as Butch mentioned, we can transition to more complex work, because there's still so much of that out there, and there's still there's just work that really requires human intervention and interaction. So you're not going to be able to take that away. And whether automation takes out some of that, but it's going to be replaced with something.
Yeah, it's coming. It's inevitable. So I love your message that we just have to embrace it and be ready for it.
Yep.
I think that's it. Our apologies for those whose questions were not answered, but we are posting on screen right now the contact details of our dear speakers. We encourage you to get in touch with them directly, or we will also try to get answers to your question, and we will email you. Thank you very much for joining us today. We still have 3 more webinars, and the next one is going to be on September 17th. Please register for that. We'd love to see you again. Sarah and Butch, thank you very much for your presentations and for spending your time with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, maraming salamat po.
Are we having our picture?
Celine?
Yes, please. Let's have our picture.
Oh,
with our speakers. Smile. There you go.
Very Filipino. Virtual group picture.
True to form, true to form. Thank you, Butch. Thank you, Sarah. Very good presentations. Very good answers as well. Appreciate your
thank
presentation.
you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Butch. We hope to keep in touch and continue this effort to help promote our call center industry in the Philippines.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just let us know when.
Yes. All right.
Let's take another picture. I saw Jed.
Jed.
Okay.
Jed. Anyone
Yes.
else I missed?
Did we?
You know, something
Always
to do
busy. Okay,
now.
smile, Jed. There you go.
Send us the photo, Celine.
Yeah, I will be sending everyone the photo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And good night, everyone.
Right.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Congratulations,
Congratulations.
everyone. Good
Congratulations
job.
to all our participants.
everyone.
Yes.
See you next week.
See
All right.
you.
Before
Aloha.
Rhea and Andrea, can you
Yes.
stay on for a few more minutes?
All right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Ay, may participants pa.
We have